Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Lurkin from Mobalytics. We got our Frozen Orb build. We've made some slight changes to it. We're running Frozen Orb and Ice Blade enchant. We now have Tybalt's Metamorphosis, Talrasha. We got the staff. You know, we're stacking fully into DR Distant. Uh, for when you're doing Uber bosses, you're going to want Avalanche. For everything else, you're going to want Shatter. And big changes to the Paragon. Mainly, I dropped Control. And I have Enchantment Master now so that I get more Ice Blades. And I ended up taking Conjurer so that because I get 6% per conjuration, so the longer that they stay out, the more damage I get. But without the control aspect, mobbing is going to be a little bit harder. But for the sake of boss damage, we take Flame Feeder and Exploit. So you can really drop Exploit or Flame Feeder for mobbing if that's your big priority. Basically a pick 2 of Exploit, Control, and Flame Feeder. But as you can see, we have 24 Conjurations out. We used to just get like 16 out, 16 to 18. So now we have upwards, they last 20% longer. So if you had 10, you would have had 12. If you have 20, you now would have had 24. And each one is 6% damage. So that's 24% more damage when you're fully stacked up like this. So I think that's better than any glyph that you can currently find. Even Control itself is 20%. So it's a scaling thing. I'm telling you, I make the best boards in the biz, baby. But the best boards in the biz can't save you from random one-shots. And we decided to take off a lot of the DR and the Paragon because I found that no matter what I did, I was still getting nuked like that. So a nice realistic view of what a Pit 200 actually looks like, not just the cherry-picked flawless run. It happens, everybody dies. But luckily Frozen Orb and Blizzard are just, in my opinion, the only two builds that can go and kill the boss without needing a shrine, currently. So, if we still have this shrine by the time we make it, we'll just wait for it, because I'm not going to show you a shrine boss kill, because it's cool. Not very interesting. You don't get that much value out of Ice Blade enchant during the mobbing section, to be honest. But it's mainly for the bossing. Alright, so let's take a peek at how many conjurations we can get up to. Already almost just got one shot. Of course, I have a boss with really crazy high damage projectiles. Alright, let's see if we can get him. Pretty close. I'm pretty sure the bosses have different health pools based on who they are. And I'm going to stay far away for a minute because I don't want to die to an after effect. Alright, so that's a tier 200. So now I'll actually go over the build and the skills and stuff. So ideally on the helmet, you're going to want Ever Living. I like armor and Frost Nova size, and then ideally I would have armor, cooldown reduction, and then you can take max life or int. Just depends on what kind of player you are. You want more health or you want more damage. But armor and cooldown are the two necessities. Next we do have the concentration aspect. I would take armor and 3 defensives, and then again take int or max life, depending on what type of player you are. And I like total armor and Frost Nova size. You can opt to not run Frost Nova. You can run Lightning Spear on the bar, or you could even run Deep Freeze, and then in that case you would just take Freeze Duration over all this Frost Nova size. Again, we take another Frost Nova size. I love how big it is. It's really good for staggering the bosses, but gloves are really simple. Crit strike chance, attack speed, and 4 ranks to Frozen Orb. And then ideally you're going to want damage to distant. This build stacks damage to distant, so you want that, and then Frost Nova size, or the other stuff as I've talked about. Next is Tybalt's Will. I found right here, 16,700 armor is all we need for this, because according to the armor calculators, level 190 enemies are 16,700 armor. So we take Tybalt's for the 20% damage. Mana's pretty good, honestly. Everything's been great. Next, we're going to have Asu's Heirloom, just standard Asu's. You're probably going to want to hit, I'd say you would want to hit greater fixes on mana cost reduction, or actually, it doesn't really matter. Movement speed, crit strike damage, or mana cost. Next, we do have a staff, so we want this fat damage to distant roll. You're going to put Frozen Orb on there. You're going to put the Frozen Orbit on there. So we got DR distant. Alright, let me start over. So, your Frozen Orbit staff is going to be intelligence, attack speed, and resource cost reduction. You can try not having resource cost reduction. Each time I take it off, I don't really enjoy it, but we get so much mana regen out of Fractured Winterglass that you might be able to get away with it, and if that's the case, I would take Vuln damage. So we have chance for Frozen Orb projectiles to cast twice and the damage distant. Fractured Winterglass, you're really going to want the max. Mine started with 1 out of 2 Conj Mastery, and the only way to get it to like 3 is to hit the Masterwork twice on it. So this amulet needs to have 2 max Conj Mastery, and then I'm not totally sure how to get it to go to 4. I think it might be 2 Masterworks to hit it. But cooldown reduction, it's okay. But yeah, the Masterwork's not too important on this. Just trying to get the 3 ranks to Conj Mastery, and that should happen when you fully upgrade it, I believe. Again, we've got Talrasha here, just 13% damage, 15% damage per elemental stack. We're going to get 3 stacks in this build because we're not doing Lucky Hit, Poison, or Shadow. The Masterworks on here, non-physical, it doesn't really matter, honestly. Any of them are fine besides Lucky Hit. And then we have a Conceited Ring. On this ring, I would probably take... It depends if you opted to go Int or Max Life over here. I don't really know. I definitely want Crit Strike chance and attack speed. I think the third one's sort of a flex. You can take Int or you can take Max Life. But, it's just going to affect how much damage you do. And then so our 3 damage aspects are Frozen Orbit, Storm Swell, and Conceited. We don't need a generator. Everything's fine. Let's go over the new board. So we opted to take Tactician and the starter. Bumps non-fizz, bumps all resist. We path up here, we grab Enchantment Master. So what that does is that takes our Frozen Orb enchant from a 30 to a 36% chance to cast, and it drops our Ice Blade enchantment from 40 seconds in cooldowns to 33 seconds in cooldowns. One thing to note with Ice Blade enchant, one thing to note about Ice Armor is that when you're bossing and you are using Avalanche, the Shimmering Ice Armor, the Avalanche actively works against you in this because you're not spending mana. Alright, so let me go back into here. So we have Enchantment Master. We just path up and then we grab Elementalist because we're gonna be hitting a lot of stuff with 3 elements. That's 15% damage. Next we take Exploit over here and we grab the Icefall Legendary node. So we just have Exploit for 1.1x damage because everything's vulnerable. They might need to bump the additive on here because it's getting a little low. We were only able to get 39 points in dex here, but we grab a little bit of DR Burning because it's nice. And then we just keep moving. We move over to Enchanter on Frigid Fate. We got the 1.3x damage to vulnerable enemies, and we get 130% non-fizz out of here. Next is Elemental Summoner. And hopefully they drop hopefully they drop all the Rex on here. But I took this note. I like this one because we get a little bit more resist and we get some conj damage. But mainly I took it for Conjurer. I'm not after the plus 120% conjuration damage, even though that is chill. I'm after the 20% increased conj duration. The biggest thing about that is, like as I was saying, Conj Mastery is 6%. At 6 ranks, it's 6% damage, 6% movement speed, and 12% resource passive mana regen per conjuration. So when you have 10, if you would normally have 10 conjurations out, you're now going to have 12 out because they're lasting 20% longer. So that's 12% more damage. And as we saw, we're usually getting up to 15, 16, 15 to 20 conjurations, especially when I haven't tested this on like an Uber boss, but you should be able to. I could see a world where with Iceblade Enchant, that you were getting upwards of 30 conjurations out. And something that you could play around with is Hydra Enchant with Iceblade Enchant. So maybe I'll take a run with that, or I'll try an Uber boss with that. But the Frozen Orb Enchant's nice. So at 20 conjurations, you're now gonna have 24. Because they're lasting 20% longer, so you get 20% more of them on average, basically. So that's going to be 24% more damage and movement speed, and 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 you're already way over cap. But unfortunately, they gutted Asu so that the over cap no longer counts, because that would have been so broken. But that's really big. And then lastly, we take Flame Feeder, just for 1.1x damage against burning enemies. Now, when we're mobbing, our only source of burn is Hydra enchant. So honestly, we're not getting a ton of burn when we're mobbing. So I would say, if you were to make a change, I would say for Uber bossing, I would have Flame Feeder here, and I would say for mobbing, like when you're running pits, I would have Control here, because most of your damage when you're bossing in pits is when they're staggered, but the Uber bosses take so much longer to stagger that most of your damage comes from the non-stagger phases. So that's why we opt for these flat damages. That's why we don't have the control aspect, etc. But yeah, for pits, control glyph here. For Uber bosses, flame feeder glyph here. I hate having to do swaps like this, but it is what it is. And I'm pretty happy with this board. It's, it can be... Icefall is a really expensive board to take in path through, so it usually makes getting 7 boards a little tight. But the fact that I've managed to get 7 boards and grab this enchantment master node, which is another really expensive thing, I'm just going to toot my own horn. I really like this board. And obviously, if you don't want Conjurer, you could take another board here. Like, you could probably take Ceaseless Conduit, and you could just get, like the bare minimum, or even maybe even a little bit more, and then max out the decks here a little bit more. But you could take Ceaseless Conduit and grab Control. That way you sort of have the best of all worlds. But that's sort of up to you. All right. I hope you guys like the update. Frozen Orb is really dope, and I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I hope they don't nerf it to oblivion. It's so strong. It feels like how strong builds should feel, especially considering how hard the Uber bosses are right now. Like, they're taking forever. If they nerf this, like, what are we going to have? I don't know. All right. Looking forward to Season 4. See you guys. Lord Zir, baby. I lived through that. That's crazy. See how much loot we got with that. A 3, 5 uniques, no winter glass ammo.